And if we move in this direction, maybe it won't. And so here's the issue then. So as it relates to elections and as it relates to our economy, because Donald Trump fired the statistician, the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS for short, the question is, can we really count on or trust the information, the numbers, the facts, the real facts? Do we have real facts right now? We don't have a shared sense of facts and reality. So that is my question. And so I want to give you those two stories, okay? And then I'm going to introduce you to someone. Maybe you've seen him, maybe you haven't. I have worked with him many times. He's appeared on my program when I was on CNN and at other networks. He's saying, here's why it was okay for Donald Trump to fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But let's get to the economy and what's real and what's not. And we have someone here who you can trust to bring you the information on what's going on. And that is Mr. Sam Caucci. Sam is the founder and CEO of Huddle, and he works to get us accurate information. So Sam, thank you for joining us. Am I wrong in my assessment that we're at a critical point right now where we don't know what information to trust if this continues in this direction? Then we'll go on and talk about the overall health or weakness or what have you of the economy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Don. I mean, the work of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the commissioner's work, it's at the heart of the government's constant attempt to explain the economy. And everybody watches these numbers. I mean, this is not just the banks, but Fed, businesses, small businesses, investors, Congress. It's unemployment data, it's participation data, it's wage growth. And when you fire the scorekeeper, it's concerning. What's going to be more concerning is if we throw out the scoreboard as well, or how we change that.
If we throw out the scoreboard as well, your concern is that we're throwing out the scoreboard and not just the gatekeeper or the person who is, I guess, a public servant who works to help the American people. You think we're throwing out the scoreboard as well?
I mean, we'll see what happens and what's ahead. The people that are behind the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as these are economists. These are nonpartisan statisticians that are they work every day. They work really hard to make sure that the data comes in correct. Sometimes, and often this has not been something that's just been done in the last 2 years. We're constantly looking backward to make sure the data that we have is accurate. The data behind the jobs report is survey data. Surveys come in. They come in. Some of them trickle in late, and we've always looked back to make sure data is correct. And I think we're just sitting here in a moment where somebody doesn't like the numbers, and they're looking for a change. So we'll see what happens as far as do we change what the key metrics, how we pull data together, and what we choose to look to.
All right, Sam, thank you for that. And again, we're going to get to the overall and the things that folks should know, the things that my team discussed with you. We're going to get to that. But I want to talk about this because this is a visual representation of what I believe our viewers and American people should know. So I say on this program all the time that this is it's a show. Okay, every administration wants to tout what they want to do. They want their agenda to pass, but usually they work from at least a place of reality, even though it is partisan. Not to this level, though. Stephen Moore is an economist that Donald Trump has been touting as oh my God, he is the most trusted and the best. Stephen Moore, let me just put this out there, is a hack. I know him. I've worked with him. He will say anything to help move the Republican agenda, but now the MAGA agenda forward and Donald Trump's agenda. And I'll show you his hypocrisy. I'm going to prove that to you. But this is Stephen Moore saying that he has access to data that no one else does at a dog and pony show at the White House. I believe it was yesterday. Here it is.
Incredible number.
Yeah.
Just came out.
Just came out. So that's a giant game.
And if I would have said this, nobody would have believed me. There's your number.
Yeah.
We're doing well.
So the next one
you can pause that.
We finally have.
But I want the one where Stephen Moore is discussing what he wants. It's after this, the next clip.
But
Stephen Moore, there it is. This is him saying, now I want you to watch this closely, and then I'll show you the hypocrisy here. And then when you see those numbers, That's the issue here. Are those numbers accurate? Are they making up those numbers because he wants to push the MAGA agenda? Here it is.
I called the president because I had some very good news from some new data that we've been able to put together that no one has ever seen before, and I'll just very quickly go through these. So I was telling the president that he did the right thing in calling for a new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because this shows that over the last 2 years of the Biden administration, the BLS overestimated job creation by 1.5 million jobs. That's Mr. President, that's a gigantic error. And I don't know if she's, I'm not
It might not have been an error. That's the bad part. If it was an error, it would be one thing. I don't think it's an error. I think they did it.
So he thinks they did. There's no proof of that. And, he says in the beginning here, this is information that no one has seen before. We've heard that before as it relates to RFK Jr. and vaccines and other issues, but it's information that no one has ever seen before. How do you know that this information is even credible? And why has no one seen it before? It makes no sense. Now, do you agree with what he said, that it was overestimated, Sam?
I mean, it's unfact checkable. I agree with what your point is, Don. This is the guy that wrote the book Trumponomics. So, he's gonna say what he's gonna support this narrative, and it's a good narrative for the White House. But the data is from all of my research and conversations over the last 24 hours and trying to really dive in. The data is not fact checkable at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Very good point. Okay, now I just want to show you the hypocrisy here, and then we're going to move on, because I want to set you up for this learning session, class today that you're going to get from Sam Caucci. Okay, so this is Stephen Moore. Now this is 1 day apart. Okay, touting the numbers, and then when Donald Trump doesn't like the numbers, and he's going to say the numbers are bad. Here it is.
I called the president because I had some very good news from some new data that we've been able to put together that no one has ever seen before, and I'll just very quickly go through these. So I was telling the president that he did the right thing in calling for a new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because this shows that over the last 2 years of the Biden administration, the BLS overestimated job creation by 1.5 million jobs. Mr. President, that's a gigantic error.
73,000 jobs. 73,000 jobs created in the month of July. Number just coming out.
And that's total.
Steve Moore, your reaction.
Look, I think this is all a result, this disappointing number is a result of all the turmoil over tariffs and the trade wars.
I mean, that was when they came out. He said, I know it's, and that there's turmoil or whatever. He did not mention that at the press conference just a few days later. What say you, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, again, which one do you, which version do you believe?
Even more?
Yeah, which one do you trust in? And I think this is the challenge we're talking about around truth and data. I mean, and I come back to it. Businesses, the Congress, our economy, investors are making decisions every day. At One Huddle, we deal with businesses every day who are making decisions based off a whole bunch of data that comes into the business. In the reporting that comes out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the reporting that comes out of the Oval Office is data that affects not just all of the folks we're talking about, the top business owners who are making decisions. It affects every worker in our economy and people in our communities. And, it's very concerning.
Yeah. So you said this isn't about covering up. This isn't about bad data. This is about covering up a deeper workforce crisis. Explain that.
Yeah, I mean, today, when you look at the workforce, 2 in 3 American workers don't have a college degree. It's overwhelmingly frontline workers. We're living in a moment today, and you see it from looking at the numbers from May, June, and July, the way that job growth is trending, what's being created, what isn't. We're also living in a moment where AI is we're in the crosshairs of automation and AI investments that are fundamentally affecting the functions of work, what jobs are changing, what jobs are being created, what jobs are being automated away. And, the future of work right now is scary. And the reality of work at the moment is, sometimes, even scarier for a lot of workers in the workforce. At One Huddle, we deal with, variety, businesses from hospitality to restaurant to retail to manufacturing to healthcare to nonprofits. And I'll say, as we look at the jobs data to come back to move forward, the trends we see on our platform as far as investment in people is not going up when it should be. It's in some ways going going backward.
You said that One Huddle, according to the data at One Huddle, something more dangerous is happening. The BLS report might show, you said, slowing job growth, but what you're seeing is more dangerous. People giving up on their current jobs, and you have the data to show it.
Yeah, so we see two trends on our platform as we look at workers across about a dozen different verticals. One is low replacement trend. So when in environments with a lot of frontline workers, restaurants, retail, hospitality, churn is natural. There's high churn. It's frontline workers that oftentimes aren't maybe working one job. They may be working two or three to get by. And traditionally what happens is as employees churn, the companies keep up with that churn. You have to balance. If there's two workers out, we have to bring two workers in. And we're seeing that replacement, that fill rate is decaying, where organizations are losing workers and not replacing them as fast. Now, the question is that because they found ways to become more efficient and do more with less? So we're seeing that lack.
Either way, it's bad. Either way, it's not good, right? If
Right.
they found it more, right, or if they're just doing it. But you said this churn has surged. Sorry to cut you off. 211% just in Q2.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, yeah.
And again, when you double click on the data, it's that trend is not just with frontline work. It is significantly higher for low wage frontline hospitality workers, but it is starting to step up when it comes to management level roles, college educated roles. We're starting to see some of the same trend really starting to introduce itself, and I think that speaks to this reality of AI automation and the way companies are utilizing these tools. No job is safe. And while we want to talk about all the opportunities that AI will bring, because I do believe there are a variety of opportunities, but when it comes to our workforce and it comes to wages, we're in a tough spot right now.
So then what does this mean for the average everyday person? But let me just read this for you. It said 51% of training activity in July focused on non-company specific skills. What is that? What do you mean non-company specific skills?
So this is almost the opportunity inside all of the data that we're seeing. 51% and One Huddle is a game platform. So Don, we take all employee training. Think of it like the videos you have to watch to do your job, the manuals you're supposed to read. And what we do is we make it more effective, more engaging. We turn it into a quick burst mobile game platform. Makes learning more accessible, makes it more effective. And so what we watch what are workers doing, because traditionally job training is, it's required. This is the material you're supposed to do for your job. But on One Huddle, because it's a game, employees have the opportunity to explore skills and career pathways that are adjacent or totally different from their current job. The fact that 51% of the games being played were on non-company specific content tells us that employees are exploring. They're voluntarily looking for maybe not just what is the next job in their pathway, but they may be looking to acquire new skills, which is counter to the argument that many make that workers are, I think this is probably the ugliest phrase we can use today in our economy, is that we have unskilled workers. It shows that we have skilled workers who are interested. And it's not a matter of being unskilled. It's about organizations maybe being unwilling to invest in certain segments of their workforce. So when we see 51% looking at other material and other content, that tells us that we have a workforce that isn't lazy. They're not sitting on the sideline waiting for handouts. They are motivated, but maybe we just need to do a better job as leaders of creating opportunities for them and pathways for them.
How do you respond to the person, this Avis, who's in the chat now, says this is so depressing? Is it? Well, I guess it is. If you're a worker out there, I want you guys to tell me I want to hear from the workers who are out there, and whether you agree with what Sam is saying. Are you looking for other things? What's happening where you are? So I want to hear from you. But in your report, you also say that with this 51% training activity focused on non-company specific skills, you said it's the highest it's been all year, and it's up from 31% from just last month. That is a huge increase in just 1 month. There's something that's happening here, and I'm sure maybe you've touched on it, and it's AI, but it's also, it speaks to why we need accurate information as it involves the economy. But it also may speak to, again, I think it does speak to the health of the overall economy, because if people had jobs that were satisfying, that were paying the bills, that they were okay, that they were confident about the future of their jobs, they wouldn't perhaps be doing all of these things that you say could be leading them into different directions, or looking for other jobs, or just not feeling good about where they are right now.
Yeah, disengaged and disconnected workers are a reality for our workforce today. It is not getting better. It is getting worse. I believe Gallup, who they probably released 4 studies since we've started talking, Don. They came out with a report. They track worker sentiment as a relationship to managers, and they found that I think it's somewhere around only 1 in 4, 23% or so. Only 23% of workers wake up every day and say they have a manager who cares about them personally.
How many?
It was 23%, 24%. It's trending down. It's 1 in 4. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that we're seeing workers more and more exploring different pathways. It is, I think, to speak to the person in the chat who mentioned it's depressing, I do think there's opportunity here. I think that where we see the opportunity amidst all of this moment is, if employers can use technology, so can workers. And as we think about what the jobs are going to look like in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it's absolutely clear that the jobs of tomorrow, nobody really knows what they're going to look like. Nobody is sure. And I think it speaks to an opportunity for workers, although no doubt those who are paid the least pay the most in this economy today. They are the most vulnerable. They don't lack skills. They lack opportunities. But I do believe I am motivated. Our office is in Newark, New Jersey. We do a lot of work with Mayor Raz J. Baraka here in the city of Newark, the workforce development programs here in the city, Governor Murphy here in the state of New Jersey. I think local economies that are trying to create more workforce opportunities at the ground floor are critical. That is what we need more of. We need more municipalities and local programs supporting job skilling and workforce opportunities, because to rely on the employer only it's been proven not to be the best strategy. And we need a team approach to how we're all going to collectively prepare for the future of work.
Look, I was going to ask you answer the question, but is there an opportunity here? Someone said the opportunity doesn't pay the rent, which is true until that opportunity becomes reality, right? Until it realizes, then it doesn't pay the rent. Someone says, Audrey says we're going into a depression zone here, depression area. 23% sounds high to them. This is what I want to ask you though, as well. And then if you guys have questions for Sam, put them in the chat, and because I find this very fascinating. I find it very illuminating. He says, I'm making the most money I have ever made, and I am still just scraping by, unable to really save or invest. And so that speaks to prices that we need to know, are prices really rising? We need accurate information on that. Getting rid of the BLS, leader, chair, whatever it is, that doesn't help. Where are the employment opportunities? If you don't have accurate information, you don't know that. That doesn't help the American worker, doesn't help the overall economy. Do you see where I'm going with this? And this person is right. Most people are saying, I'm making more money, but I feel like I'm making less.
Yeah, no, I mean, wages are a problem. I mean, and this is maybe where we shifted the conversation around where government should be doing more and where it can be doing more.
Okay, you want to hold? Can you hold that thought, and we'll talk about that conversation in the moment?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, stand by, everyone, because we're going to take a minute away from the program, not really away from the news, and we're going to get a word from our sponsors. Support comes from Shopify. When I first started the Don Lemon Show, it was just a dream. Now it's a business and a community that reaches people all over the world. So if you've got a dream, don't let it stay in your head. Those what ifs you can keep thinking about all the time, turn them into why nots. The Shopify by your side. Shopify powers millions of businesses worldwide and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from huge brands to people just starting out. We even use Shopify for our own merch store right here. If you think that you can't design a website, Shopify's got beautiful templates ready to go. They'll help you enhance your product, your photos, write descriptions, and create discount codes with their built-in AI tools. You can find customers through easy email and social campaigns. And if you ever get stuck, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 support is there for you. So turn your dreams into with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/lemon. That's shopify.com/lemon. Support comes from BetterHelp. These days, there's advice for everything: cold plunges, meditation apps, journaling. But figuring out what actually works for you, well, that's the hard part. I've done therapy, and it's helped me through some of life's most challenging seasons. Having someone to talk to without judgment makes a huge difference. So BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 5 million people served. You can meet with a therapist from the comfort of your home and switch anytime if you need to. Their app has a 4.9 out of 5 rating with over 1.7 million reviews because it works. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/donlemon. That's betterhelp.com/donlemon. Thank you to our sponsors. Okay, we're back now with Mr. Sam Caucci, who's giving us the real information on what's going on. He is the founder and CEO of One Huddle, a platform that brings you accurate information regarding the jobs and the workforce and how to improve it. And he's joining us here today. If you have some questions, we'll try to get him to answer some of it. And you said this should take us forward, so we should be discussing what, Sam?
I was saying that as we look forward, I think that the important point around skills, and this, I'm watching the kind of chat and looking at all the great questions and comments are coming. I should copy and paste this into an HR thread somewhere. That'll really get them aggravated. But one of the comments talked about human resources. And I think that the skills, no doubt, the skills we're training for and developing people for today are often not in line with where work is going. And organizations really need to transform human resource functions into human development functions. And until that happens, there's going to be continued burden on the employee to go and find ways to build more, not skills. I think this is everybody talks about skills. Companies don't buy skills, they buy credentials. And you know how we know that? We know that because of the value of a 4-year education on wages versus someone who doesn't have it. It's not a skill gap. It's a credential gap today. And we're talking about government, Don. And there are ways that government can support workers' ability to acquire credentials and gain access, one of which is impacting wages, one of which is a universal basic income, one of which is tying education dollars and support and workforce dollars to better outcomes from education programs to ensure that universities are keeping the curriculum they sell, whether it's an associate's degree, a certificate, or a 4-year degree, that they are continue to keep their programming and education up to speed with the demands of the workforce. But today, government oftentimes is blocking. We see a lot of regulation today that holds employees back from accessing opportunities. And this is, people are asking for specifics. Currently today, under the Fair Labor Standard Act, which is the kind of the crown jewel of labor rights, was written back in the 1930s. There's actually language, Don, in it that dictates what is a transferable skill and what isn't. And why that matters is that if it is a non-transferable skill, companies have to compensate the worker for all education related to a non-transferable skill. Again, if you double click on transferable versus non-transferable, a non-transferable skill is like knowing how to make a coffee at Starbucks. So if I work at Starbucks and we'll pick on them, I'm a barista and I know how to build a drink correctly there, that's considered non-transferable. And so there's federal regulations that say employers are not allowed or must pay for all training, workforce learning, and workforce opportunities as it relates to getting better at a job. It can only be transferable, which would be, communication skills, soft skills. By the way, 83 cents of every training dollar in our economy goes to safety and compliance training, which, while important, is not skill and credential building in the way that our economy really values. So, as back to government, I think the government can play a better role by ensuring that the rules of the game are more in line with where work is today. And just that simple transferable versus non-transferable language creates a world where a frontline hourly worker, maybe a minimum wage worker, will not be afforded the same learning opportunities of an individual with a 4-year degree, simply because of their status within the org.
A couple questions that people want to know, and perhaps I don't know if it'll be Sam's particular expertise, but someone said, "What's the case? Is there a case for universal pay?" And do you understand that question? Is there an answer for that?
I mean, I think that current wages do not work for workers, and they create an environment where workers. And I talk to folks on both sides of the aisle on this, and this is what I say to one side. I say that workers who come to work stressed don't perform well. They don't sell, they don't service, they don't smile. They're less likely to be able to perform for your business. And I again, in environments from frontline work in manufacturing to warehousing to retail to hospitality, I talk to a lot of workers every day, and I very rarely meet a worker who says, I come to work and I don't want to perform. I don't want to do a good job. Work has meaning to a worker. And the reality that we create an environment where, because of wages, we create a workforce that is, like, in 1 in 4 workers, Don, say they have a manager that cares about them personally. 3 in 4 workers come into work every day and clock in, and they're directly reporting to somebody who doesn't, give a what about them. I mean, how are we going to build a strong economy with that? That doesn't work. Well,
also too, when someone in the chat is saying, well, I'm going to put this up. One thing affects everything else. We see people lose their jobs, and everything is being targeted at an increased rate. There's no time for recovery. It is troubling. It sounds like there's no time for recovery because everybody's behind the 8 ball. They're trying to keep up with AI, and then just the changing job markets and the metrics of our economy overall. Is that correct?
I think that workers, you know how low wage workers pay for this stuff. They pay for it with their time. And when I talk to I can tell a lot about an employer by how they treat their workers' time. And just the other day, I was talking to a hospitality brand about workers who we were asking about what do you value in a credential? You're hiring a server. What are you looking for? And they're looking for certain background and experience in certification. And we asked, well, what would it take for that server to become? What's the next job for that server? And they're, well, maybe they'll be a manager. Okay, do you know exactly how that server gets to manager? Well, they got to come, they got to work hard. So the answer is they don't. They don't know how to map the server job to manager. And then we asked, well, what's a fundamental requirement of being a manager? Well, they should probably have an associate's degree or some other degree. And the question is, when you work 60 to 70 hours a week, tell me how you go get that degree. When do you do it? Do you do it because when you wake up in the morning and you got to get your kids to childcare or in the summertime or to school, and then you got to take public transportation to your job, and then at the end of your job, after your first job, you got to go to your second job, and after your second job, you got to get home and you got to take care of your family at the end of the night, and then wake up and do it all tomorrow. How do you get to the community college? At which point do you do that? And so again, I think that we need to create space so people have the time to be able to acquire the skills necessary. But low wage workers, frontline workers, and more folks are falling into the low wage. The low wage space is growing of workers. And as everybody in the chat is saying, it's taking more than ever to just get by. And
let me ask you this, because a couple of things I want to show here. One, if you can, and we'll do sort of a lightning round if we can, because I didn't intend on taking questions, but they're saying this is very informative, so I'm glad. This person, now I feel a certain way about HR. I think HR works for the company and not for the human part of it. That's me. Whenever I had an issue, I did not want to take it to HR. I had an ombudsman, because they will set you up to get rid of you. So my HR team is pulling their hair out regarding the lack of skills. Now, these are people who are searching for jobs. Not all HR is bad. Don't get upset with me, but I just think, HR should work for the employees, not for the company. But that's not how it works for me. So regarding lack of skills, her HR team is pulling their hair out. Is that a real thing?
I'm right. We're with you, Don. We say there's HR and there's aren't that sometimes we talk to. And HR's, if the definition of human resources, by the way, if we, look it up and really look at all the different ways people define the function of human resources, it's risk reduction. It's not skill improvement.
Right.
I mean, it's the fact that today we put, and again, there are good HR teams, there are good HR people, but the function of HR is to protect the shareholder.
Right.
Because you don't want labor to rise up against the business. And it's not a skill building function. Now we can make it that, or we can set up an adjacent skill building function.
The
but
corporation
I do not
doesn't want that.
But I do not. And you know what else? The other one is they may not want the worker to take those skills where they go. And that's a real problem, how employers, and there's a clear difference between the ones who get it and the ones who don't. And the ones who don't treat workers' skills and time as theirs. Yeah. And this is a real problem. Again, we talk about credentialing. I don't think HR is evaluating skills.
Yeah.
If they were, they'd ask different questions.
Okay. So good.
If they were looking at skills, there would be different assessments during the interview process. There would be different ongoing assessments, 3 months, 6 month, 9 month, 12 month. That employer I mentioned a second ago about how do you get from server to manager? If we know that there are skills associated with manager and we've defined them, we should be able to test for them. And the fact that we don't, and we just look at where'd you go to school, who do you know, where have you been? We buy credentials that are experience based. Who do you know? Where have you been? We don't evaluate skills yet today. This may be an area of opportunity for AI to assist in really assessing skills so that we can connect workers to better jobs, which will help the worker and help the employer.
Sam, we're so happy to have you on. Okay, so look, wages have to keep up with the economy and the cost of things. So Lisa Galbraith says, I have a family of 3 and I can't go get a cheap meal out without spending at least $30. And that's with me eating a kid's meal. Now, let me just say this. I don't have kids, right? So it's just me. So I have me and my husband. And so, we'll go out and lots of times we'll cook at home, but I had my family here. And so it was like a family of, let's say it was 5 or 6 of us. It was almost $200, I believe it was, for pizza for, 6 or 8 people. And I wondered, I said, how does a family making, an average income, a mom and a dad, how can they afford to feed their families on this? And just going out or this was a Friday night. It's like, we don't want to cook at home. We want to go get pizza. It was $200, Sam. So, but the wages have to keep up with that. But the employers don't want to pay those wages. So then what gives here? Do you study anything like that? Do you have an answer for that?
And it's true. Our frontline work, which is the majority of American workers, by the way, talking about the percentage of workers in our workforce who are on the front line, customer facing, revenue impacting, they are more vulnerable than ever to an unexpected expense. I think the Brookings Institute says 1 in 2 American workers have what's called a bad job, where a $400 unexpected ticket will put you potentially into a situation where you can't make rent, and you're over the edge. So it's absolutely a problem. And all I can do and all I can say is, we try to advocate at One Huddle every day to the employer, to get them to understand that paying more in wages, they're going to pay. What does a 1-star review on Yelp cost you? Right? That's what we say. What does that cost your business when you're dealing with a missed sales target or a missed revenue target? I think we need to shift, and I think this is where everybody in the chat, as a workforce, as the people, can challenge our employers, because it's got to be about performance. And if we're going to invest a little bit more to make a little bit more, that happens every day. We have one of our users on One Huddle who plays games. His name's Dennis. He works for a hospitality brand in Orlando at one of the big theme parks. He's played 34,000 training games on One Huddle over 4 years. He started his career as a dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
He's now overseeing all of the stewarding department at one of the newest properties in the Orlando market. And when I went down there and I talked to him about his experience and how he got to where he is today, he talked about how his employer gave him the opportunity to skill up. And they do it every day. He said, and I asked him every day, when do you play One Huddle? He says, I wake up, I pray, and then I play. And I asked him, what kind of games do you play, Dennis? And you know what Dennis said? He looked around. He said, it's not necessarily the games on the job I'm in. I love playing the games on Black History Month. I love playing the games on learning about my credit score. I love playing the games on being a solar panel technician. And I think when employers start to treat their employees as good as, they should do it better, as good as their guests, as good as their customers, because then we will not have a workforce that can perform as well as it could or should, until employers treat their workforce. Again, your employee experience cannot, the customer experience cannot surpass the employee experience today. And we got to show brands that employees impact revenue.
So I'm going to tell you, someone said this to me. I've been hearing this a lot from people. Okay, so let me explain to you. For people who don't live in New York, it may be a little bit cheaper for you. But if you live in New York or anywhere near a big metropolitan area, my mom is here from Louisiana. She is shocked by how much we have to pay here. I don't even want to tell her about my taxes, because then she'll be like, well, what the hell? Why are you living here? Move back to Louisiana. This is crazy. So I don't know where you are. Maybe pizza's a lot cheaper. But when you live in a large metropolitan area, that ain't so. So the average cost of this is average, is around $18 per pizza. And if you live in a big metropolitan area, it gets higher than that. Okay, Pizza Hut is $12.99. That's on average around the country, and to $18.99. That's $20. So it's at 20, 40, 60, 81. Let's just say you need 4 pizzas for whatever. And then you're going to get garlic knots on top of that, and maybe you get some sodas. Maybe it's easy. It doesn't take long with the taxes, and they want tip to get to $200 or nearing that. Papa John's, $11.99. That's whatever. But that's the average prices of pizza. But when you live in the metropolitan area, the cost of goods go up a lot more. And all of those taxes that we're paying those taxes so that red states can afford cheaper pizza and infrastructure that you guys don't understand. But yes, you can get up to $200 if you have a family. I mean, it was like 8 people. There's a big guy. My nephew is a football player and that kind of thing. So he eats a lot, 2 of them. So, and then, they got the dad and you got the mom and you got the baby and you got my mom. It's like, it adds up. And so I wonder how families can afford it. So yeah, I'm living in Ohio. Someone says I order a pizza from Pizza Hut for delivery. I end up spending $30 minimum. That's what I'm saying. That's for one person. You guys not get that? Maybe, I guess you don't get it around the country, but you understand. So do you understand what I'm saying, Sam? The wages have to keep up with the cost of goods. And I don't think people realize just how expensive it is, not just to eat out for a family, but to buy groceries in the grocery store. When I go look at groceries now, I think, oh my gosh, When I was a kid, this was blah, 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 blah. Or I just remember a couple years ago, this would cost me $4 or $5 less than it is costing now. But workers' wages are not going up as fast as the cost of goods or of gas. And so all of these things about, when Donald Trump says we're doing great, the economy's great. The stock market is maybe an indication of the health of the economy, maybe, but that's usually for people who are okay, for wealthier people, for people who have 401ks or are able to invest. Not everybody can do that. So when he says we're doing great, yeah, his rich friends are doing great, but that doesn't mean the average America is doing great and that they're keeping up and that their wages are keeping up as well with the prices.
The number one thing we hear again, every day, and the data we see coming in, we look at a lot of data that either we're surveying from One Huddle or data that comes back to us, and it's not even close. The number one piece of feedback that we get from users has to do with reward recognition and compensation. And we're a skilling product, right? So our product is used to skill workers up. So it's often that we expect to hear things from our users about the quality of the training or recommendations or suggestions on something new they may want to see on the platform. But that is a distant number two or number three. Number one, time and time again. And we survey users that leave companies, and oftentimes when we ask, it's clear that the categorization of the feedback is poor reward, poor recognition, poor incentives are a driver to why that person either left or was not happy during the term of their employment.
Wow. Sam, we didn't plan on talking to you about giving advice to folks, but I mean, you've done a really great job and people find this fascinating. They think it's very illuminating and informative. Guys, New York pizza isn't one slice anymore. It's like $2.50 a slice anymore. It's $2.50 a slice. First of all, Franny, tell me where you're getting this $2.50 a slice, because that's cheap. I mean, where I am, my pizza is $5, and you're like, whoa, that's cheap. $2.50 a slice. I live on Long Island. Okay, it's like $28 for a pie. Thank you, Franny. $28. That's $30 for a pie. If you ever get a dollar slice pizza, it's probably going to be trash. Okay. So yeah, and then look. True. $30 for one person for pizza and cheese breads. I have the receipts. That's what I'm telling you guys. It's crazy out there. Sam, you're the man. Will you come back?
Absolutely. Anytime.
I hope you enjoyed your experience here and talking to the Lemon Nation, because they like you. And next time we will give you specific topics that you can answer questions from our viewers, if you're okay with that.
Would love to.
Thank you, Sam. Have a great weekend. Okay.
You too. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, yeah, thank you. We have a lot to talk about. We need to talk about what's happening around the country. Your vote being stolen. We've gone on a little long with that, but we got on a little bit late because we were trying to prepare to make sure we have the accurate information for Sam. But we're going to talk about your vote.